You are now listening to Little Sparks, Big Hope, an EmberHope podcast.
Hi everyone, I am Nikki Hayes and I'm here with Britt. We are the two main people who are going to be hosting the podcast today, as our third, Miss Autumn, is out taking care of her sweet daughter who was sick today. So.
Yep, living that mom life. But we are
Yes.
so excited to have Allison Pate on today. She is our VP of Residential Services. And man, does she have some amazing stories for you guys today. I'm really excited for you to hear her talk.
And you're definitely going to walk away learning something new.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into it.
Just to give you a little episode overview, today we're going to be talking about residential services, a part of child welfare that many people may have heard of but don't really have always the full understanding of it. And then we'll also be discussing what residential care really looks like, the youth it serves, the impact it can have on the youth person's healing journey, and just kind of working through those stigmatized or destigmatizing residential services. So we will get to talking with our guest speaker today, Allison Pate, in just a few short minutes. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and get started with our connecting question.
Yes.
And we're going to have Allison join us in this portion.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So our connecting question today, just to walk the walk with our TBRI principles, is what is something you wish more people understood about children and youth who have experienced trauma?
They're just kids.
Yeah.
They really are
Yeah.
just kids, just like any kid that hasn't experienced trauma. But they have so many more difficulties that they're trying to navigate through. And so many people see the behavior and they don't see what's behind that behavior.
Yeah, which is really difficult. And
It is.
I know from an adoptive mom standpoint, you as well, Allison, that it's a lot of these circumstances happened to kids that didn't ask to be put in these situations. They didn't ask for parents who couldn't show up for them. They didn't ask for any of this. It just happened to them, and they're reacting in ways that they only know how.
Exactly. And I think to add to that, for me, it's also youth and trauma in general is not one size fit all. We all experience trauma differently. And I think that is also a common misconception, especially for our youth, because sometimes they might not even recognize the trauma within themselves. Their body is responding, and they don't even realize that it's the trauma that's responding.
Yeah. And I always tell people I started my career in juvenile justice. And I always said my juvenile justice kids got caught committing a crime before people figured out they were experiencing trauma. There is no difference. In my experience, there was no difference between my juvenile justice kiddos and my child welfare kiddos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good segue into telling us about how you got started at EmberHope and what your role is currently.
Yeah.
So I'm currently the vice president of residential services. Started my career in, I am 2 weeks away from 25 years ago. So
Holy
congratulations.
moly. Congrats, girl. You don't look a day over 35.
thank
We
you.
are so lucky to have you.
July of 2001, I was
Wow.
a line staff on the floor in a maximum security treatment facility for boys in inner city Kansas City that had committed some pretty violent crimes.
Wow.
Served as a supervisor, line staff, and a case manager in that role. Shifted into a privatization contract in Missouri for child welfare. Was a case manager, lead case manager, and a supervisor in that role. Lost my mind for a minute and thought I could not do direct client contact because my other nerdy interest is research and numbers. And I actually came to what was then Youthville as a performance improvement person. But yeah, in 2012, October of 2011. And so it was super Loved it. Loved the numbers. Loved the data. Everyone that knows me will tell you that. Suffered and hated not having direct client contact. And so in 2014, in June of 2014, the program manager job came open at what was then just Secure Care. That was the only thing in Newton. And so I think when we opened the YRC2 this in December of 24, I think we counted that I've opened 10 facilities.
Wow.
Between Newton
Hands
and
down
then
to
Goddard.
you.
No
So,
kidding.
yeah.
Can you real quick educate what YRC2 means for our
Yeah,
listeners? Because that's a lot of lingo that
it
sometimes
is.
goes over people's heads.
It is, the acronym is Youth Residential Center too.
Okay.
It's a group home.
Okay.
I feel like we treat it way differently than most people do. We have always done a really good job at this agency of recognizing that while you could house the youth, do some outside services, you really need treatment in that facility. And so staff do psychosocial groups. We do partnerships. We have a ComCare therapist in our facility that sees our kids, and just different partnerships that come in and do groups. And our staff are doing groups as well because our goal is always, I tell kids all the time, like, my goal is for you to leave here and never come back. I would like nothing more than for these kids to work me completely out of a job one day.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's definitely something that we have heard in this room before.
Yeah.
And a lot of other guests. And it's a sentiment that the three of us share as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because residential's not normal. It's not
Yeah.
a normal way to live. You don't want kids there too long because they get very accustomed. And honestly, foster care in general, even foster homes. And as an adoptive parent, I see it sometimes with my oldest especially. My youngest was 3 at her last removal. My oldest was 8. And so they very much get stuck in we have to, especially residential. Can I go to the bathroom? Because we are required by law to know where they're at all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not normal.
No.
One of the first things I did when I came to residential was got rid of a level system
Okay.
because that is not real life.
Yeah.
Level systems are like, nobody goes to a job and they're like, you're on level 1. And so we got rid of a level system and have kind of evolved into they earn stars and there's a star store. We do this on both campuses. We recently kind of tied in some bonus stuff with Trisha's help with TBRI. And so, yeah, it's just level systems aren't normal.
But reward based is. I mean, that works for any kid. It's you get money for doing chores. You get
Yes. And
I
it's
always,
Yeah.
I tell staff loss of privilege is like being grounded. I was grounded.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
My kids get grounded.
Yeah,
Like,
same.
loss of privilege is basically you're grounded at home.
Yes.
No
And you
phone,
kind of
no
hit on
nothing.
it. I mean, when it comes to the youth, instead of doing the level system, because that's not necessarily normalcy, to provide them more normalcy, you are giving them that reward system. You're trying to make it as normal as possible, even though, like you said, it's not, which I think is so vital for our youth, because that honestly truly helps them to see that they can proceed and continue to move through it once they leave the residential facility.
Yes. We try to use the language that they earn the stars. They don't lose them. We don't take them. Like, we want them to have ownership in that. And I think the other thing we do a really good job of in both facilities is client voice.
Good.
We have a client advisory board, and so there's 2 kids from each facility that they give us a list of stuff. This is what's going well. This is what's not. Here's our requests. We look at that in operations meeting every month and answer every single one of them.
Wow.
That is amazing.
So we worked really hard. I am on the Building Bridges Initiative, which is now part of ACRC, the outcomes work group for residential. And we're blessed to have our peer youth advocate be a change agent with them as well. And so we've really tried to model some of that client voice stuff around things that we've learned working with them and working through them, because and every treatment plan also has a client determined goal.
Yeah.
And people laugh because, I mean, the goal might be, I'm only going to hit one person this week. Great, because you hit 5 last week.
Exactly.
And so you have to be okay. I think so many times in child welfare, we think we know better as the professionals, and there's no better expert on kids and families than kids and families.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And I love that you are also giving the youth back their voice, because unfortunately with the trauma they've experienced, a lot of times they don't feel like they have their voice. Yeah. So by having that initiative, by having those groups to make sure that that youth voice is heard is so vital.
And validating.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know my kid at home is just like, you never listen to me. And I'm like, girl, I listen to you all the time.
Exactly.
You just might not like what you're hearing.
Yep.
Yes. You don't like the
Yes.
difference between you're not listening to me because you're not doing what I want.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes these kids just need to vent. And so, you know, you come into our cottage and you may hear a kid that's seems really escalated, and they're not really mad. They are literally like, they had a bad phone call. Parent didn't show up for a visit. Worker didn't show for a visit. Yeah. And really trying to just let them talk through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think
it's have a minute.
And it's so important to just kind of like put yourself in their shoes. Like, how would you feel if you were so excited to see your mom and then she didn't show up?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That would make me mad. That would make anybody mad.
Yeah.
It's essentially like you need to look through rose-colored glasses to see their perspective.
Yeah. And I always tell new staff, I mean, there's a couple kind of make or break for new staff. One is if you personalize what they're doing, it's just not going to work. And the other one is you have got to see the why behind the behavior.
Yes.
If you just see the behavior, it will make you crazy. Yeah. You have to see what was behind what led up to the situation where they were that mad, to understand and really get to the root of that. And the therapists work with kids and the staff work with kids to do that.
Yeah. So what would you say has kept you this passionate for this long? I mean, Allison, this is 25 years of heart
and knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, I had a passion for it very young. I had a friend going back to middle school that was unfortunately abused by a stepdad and was also suicidal. And so I, like my freshman year of high school, volunteered at DCF and did file room stuff. And so it ties back to that.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, the reality of residential is you love it or hate it. There is not a middle ground. And typically it's adults or kids. Like my friends that do adults are like, you are nuts. And I'm like, oh no, give me kids any day.
Yep.
And so it really is the change you see, and you don't always see the change when they're with us.
Yeah. No.
It is the kids that literally show up and knock on our door 10 years later. Ironically, we had a garage sale at my house in Wichita, and my husband's like, hey, can you come to the porch for a minute? Former client on the porch at my garage sale.
Wow.
Married, kid, doing great.
Wow.
And so you see these things, you run into them like they're a hostess at Applebee's. They're, I always tell people they may not get it now, but sometimes, somewhere, something you said as they get older is going to stick with them.
It's that little spark that ignites it for them.
Yes, it absolutely is. And so you can't, if you're an immediate gratification person, this would make you crazy.
Yeah.
'Cause you do see that. You see that, you know, especially in the PRTF when you have, you know, kids that are still in the custody of their parents. you can see like the whole family transform before your eyes, but you don't always see that right away. You don't always see that in 3 years. You know, it may be 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
There was someone that showed up on the Newton campus that I believe was, I want to say, had been on our campus like 30 years ago.
Wow.
That just stopped in and wanted to, and I don't remember who got, I think Nikila maybe got to talk to him. Just wanted to see it. Our peer youth advocate was placed on our campus as a kid. A lot of people don't know that. She has no problem with me sharing that. And she does a really good job about what did I need? Like what did I need when I was here that I didn't get? And thankfully we've, you know, evolved over time. I think the other thing is if I ever quit learning from these kids, I'll probably leave.
Yeah.
I don't see me ever not learning. I learn more from them, and they laugh at me when I tell them that. I learn more from them than they ever probably could from me.
But it's so true. I mean, whenever our youth are teaching us, because we're helping them, yes, we're helping them build the skills or things like that. But the youth are also teaching us how to better equip ourselves to support them, because unfortunately, maybe when we were younger, we didn't have the technology. We didn't have different circumstances that the youth do now. And so they do have to teach us to a certain level because we see those challenging things daily.
Yeah, I mean, there is absolutely things that, you know, I look back, and it's not that, like, human trafficking, for instance, wasn't a thing. I absolutely believe it was probably a thing when I graduated high school in 1995. But thankfully, we live in a society that has raised awareness, has raised education. But then you add the internet, and, you know, sometimes you're like, gosh, these kids don't have a chance.
Yep.
My personal kids, I see it. But the kids at work talk about the same thing. Just random creeps reach out to them on their social media and are like, hey, what are you doing? You look nice. And they're like, bye.
Exactly.
But our kids that have experienced trauma and may not have family connections, or quite honestly, any really good connections, latch on to whatever connection they get, healthy or otherwise. And so those kids
it's a buoy.
Yeah.
It's a buoy when you're just drowning.
And they just want some sort of support, some sort of connection, which I think our facility tries to really highlight and make sure our youth feel. Because also with this, when they're in the facility, I know a big thing for us is boundaries and making sure that those youth know that they need to engage in actively using boundaries, just like our staff need to do. And so by leading by example, which I know our staff do and they're trained in, we're teaching those youth that, hey, if this person reaches out over social media, set the boundary. You don't know this person. So I think that's also something very vital, and maybe our generation needs to know a little bit more about too.
My rule is always, do you know this person in real life?
Yep.
I know them on here. No, that's not what I asked. Like
No,
real life.
have
Do
you
you
seen
physically
them?
see them in real life?
Exactly.
And so 9 times out of 10, you know, in the world of Instagram and TikTok and all of those things, they haven't.
Yeah.
And I do not envy this generation. I am blessed to have grown up. You know, first cell phone didn't happen till I was in college, and I think back and I'm like, oh, thank goodness things didn't get recorded when we were young.
Yeah.
That get recorded for infamy now, you know?
Yep. Because nothing goes away on the internet.
Exactly.
But yeah, they just so desperately want that connection. And I feel like our agency does a really good job, residential included. I mean, we have a piece in one of our outcomes is to increase connections from admission to discharge. And so we're having those conversations about, you know, if you had a flat tire, who would you call?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about placement. Where would you go for Christmas? Where would you go for Thanksgiving? Because some of these, especially the kiddos that we see in residential, parental rights have long ago been terminated, or unfortunately parents have passed away. And so it may be a friend, it may be a pastor, it may be, there's so many different connections that we can get for them. But what we know is that connections are what breaks that cycle we see of foster care to homelessness, foster care to prison. I had a friend that worked in the prison system, and at one point, 79% of her caseload, she was an institutional parolee, had been in foster care.
Oh my gosh. That's way too big of a number.
And so, and it goes back in my mind to without connection, what do you have?
Exactly.
I mean, no one's supposed to walk this life alone, and I tell that to my daughter all the time because she's got this very hard mentality of, I went through these early years of my life by myself. I supported myself. I supported my sibling, and I don't need anybody. And now at the, hard yet tender age of 16, it's reminding her, you're not an island. You are not an island.
Also 16, my oldest
You need
is
other
16.
people. It's rough,
Yeah.
Allison.
No, and my youngest is 12, and I'm like, I am not looking forward to 13 next year. But
God, I just wish she was 12 again. It was so fun.
And my oldest is the oldest of the sibling group of 4, and so in addition, she was the parent.
Yeah.
They didn't eat if she didn't sneak out and steal food from the pantry. And so, it's really hard to convince these kids. I always say about my own child, I said, it is really hard to convince her that the adults, I don't know that I would believe if I was her that the adults know better when for years and years she was smarter than all the adults in the room.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't come through. And so she learned that she couldn't depend on anybody but herself.
And our kids just, you hear very much, you don't care, you're just here for the money, all of those things, and we have to figure out how to show them we're different.
So with that,
to that point, sorry, Britt.
No, go ahead.
What would you say are some of the challenges that our youth are facing when they're entering into care? I know we've talked about connection, but what are some other big hot points that you've noticed?
The reality for youth is they have no control. And so, especially for adolescents, which is the population I serve, that is the era of naturally trying to find your own independence, your own way, what you are, who you are. And instead you have the system telling you what you can do, what you can't do, and it has gotten much better.
Good.
In my days of case management, I still lived in the days of if you wanted to spend the night at a friend's house, you had to run background checks.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully, normalcy and prudent parenting has changed all of that for us. But it is hard to just be a teenager.
Yeah.
And for staff and caseworkers, trying to navigate between what's normal teenage behavior, because I don't know about you guys, but I was not always a pleasant teenager.
Let's be honest.
We did not all make good decisions. That's what I tell my staff. I'm like, in a training I do, I was like, raise your hand if you made good decisions as an adolescent. I've never had a hand go up. None of us did.
Yeah.
No, we all have to learn from it. As kids, we're learning, so we have to make those mistakes in order to learn.
But you're toting that line of making bad decisions that you're supposed to make versus, trying to keep them safe while making sure that they're not choosing meth as one of those decisions.
Yeah, and so not every decision they make is a result of trauma. Some of it is just normal development.
Yeah.
But they're doing it under a microscope.
Yeah.
For me, I can't imagine having gone through 12 to 18 years old under a microscope.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah. I remember when I took some TB or I class through EmberHope with Alan Smith, who was, he just retired, but man, what a gem of a human being.
And he's still going to teach.
Good.
Uh-huh.
He's phenomenal. But I walked up to him afterwards. I said, okay, is this trauma or is this teenage, normalcy? And he looked me in the eye, patted my shoulder and said, good luck. I'm like, thank you. Thank
Because
you.
it's a
true.
fine line.
It's
It
a very
is.
fine line.
Yeah, it's a fine line. And it's hard for staff. Like, I don't envy my line staff that are sitting in the cottage trying to navigate how much of this is, how far do you let it go? Is this
Yeah.
normal? Is it not?
Exactly.
How quickly it escalates, all of those things, because you add the trauma to it. But for the kids, not everything is about the trauma.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard for, sometimes I worry they're seen for their trauma and what they've been through and not for who they are and their
Yes.
resilience.
So how do you bring that kid out? How do you see them for who they are versus how they're displaying?
I think some of it is figuring out, what do they like to do? What are they good at? Some kids like to read. Some kids are amazing artists. Some kids want to do, we've discovered crochet is really good for our kids because it's that repetitive motion. Finding what they're good at and what they enjoy doing, and they will light up talking to you about it. Some of them, it's just being a big sister,
Yeah.
because we serve girls. And so, some of them, all you got to do is talk about their little brother or sister, and those eyes just light up, and that's absolutely their whole world. And then I think about, I had one brother, when you're talking about hard things for kids in care, these sibling groups are going in. We do the best as we can as a system, keeping them together. But at the point that someone needs a psychiatric facility, they're split.
Yeah.
And I have siblings right now in my PRTF, which is an adventure sometimes because they sometimes are overly protective. But it's also super cool to see them be in that environment together, because a lot of people are like, oh no, I'm not taking siblings.
Yeah.
And they hadn't been together in a really long time. And so I can't imagine if someone had been like, okay, your mom and dad can't take care of you anymore, and oh, by the way, your little brother's going over here and you're going over there.
If anything, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, but could that potentially cause even more trauma by being split by their siblings?
So I always tell staff, yes, a sibling split is trauma. Every single move these kids make is a new trauma.
Yes.
Because every time you have to pack up your stuff, every time I don't think any of these kids until maybe late in care are like, oh, I'm not staying here. Like, this is just, and then their heart gets broken and they're moving here, and then their heart gets broken and they're moving here. But every move is an additional trauma. A lot of times, every move, these kids are losing something. They're losing a picture, some clothing that belonged, that was a memento for them. And it's just a hard, it's absolutely necessary to have a system that protects kids.
Yes.
But there are inadvertent traumas occurring in the system that you can't help.
Yes. And I think speaking to that too, another thing that is so vital for our youth is making sure that our staff don't just up and quit either, because that continuity of care for those youth is so vital to make sure, because they're already experiencing those traumas, like you said, when they're moving from place to place or in different circumstances. Well, on top of that, let's say they get a new staff every month, every week, whatever it may be, that also causes trauma because they don't have the stability of having that support from that worker. And it goes back to that full circle.
They
of
lost that connection of someone who knows their file, who knows their background, who knows that they like to crochet. And now they're gone and they're rebuilding that with someone else.
Exactly.
And for residential, they get used to the way, we call it structure and routine, but we have a routine. So there's a schedule you follow. Obviously we have rules and guidelines, and you have to have eyes on the kids and you have to be able to hear them. But every staff runs, because we're human, runs things a little bit, groups look different. Maybe dinner looks, maybe they set the table, some other people hand. Kids get used to that. On Tuesday, so-and-so's working, and I know that at 6 o'clock, she's going to hand me my tray at the kitchen door.
Yeah.
Exactly.
On Wednesday, Miss So-and-so's working, and I know the table's going to be laid out with my food on it, and I'm just going to come sit down. You lose a staff. You lose that routine. And it seems so minuscule to the outside world.
But it's not.
But it's what you have. You're like clinging to that,
Yeah.
which is why we always tell staff, our goal is to have that routine. One, the schedule is written on the board, but consistency. Because there's things that aren't going to be consistent. The hardest thing for kids to figure out is individualized treatment. And so this kid may get to do this because of something, a disability or something that a kid doesn't know about. But the rest of it, like the schedule, every Tuesday, unless we have some special event, the schedule should look the same.
Yeah.
And it should be visual for those kids to look at.
So it can be counted on.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and it's consistency. And so they see it, they expect it, they understand it, including the 2-hour snacks. And so part of TBRI is that hydration food break.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be stopping every couple hours. And for us, it's cheese sticks, beef sticks. Our kiddos do not like plain water, so we should probably buy stock in drink flavors because that's how they drink the water, because the plain water is not their friend, apparently. But just stopping and watching, getting that protein, getting that, and it's a reset, because we're not just handing out beef sticks while they're running around. I mean, we'll still give you a beef stick if you're running around, but most of the time they're sitting still. Mm-hmm. It gives you a chance to breathe. It gives the staff a chance to check in, and they're getting food.
Exactly.
They're teenagers. They're growing. They're all the things. And the traditional, breakfast, lunch, and dinner snack at 3 and 8 doesn't work for these kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what might healing look like in the residential setting? And I know you're over there chuckling, because I'm sure every kid is massively different,
Mm-hmm.
which we know.
Yes.
But what might a good point be of just what's a standardized mark, I guess?
For some kids, it's just being able to talk about the trauma.
Yeah.
For some kids, it is reconnecting with an aunt or a cousin or a somebody that they haven't done. We have aftercare in our PRTF, and it is immensely helpful in convincing teams hey, if you're going to reconnect this kid with somebody, now's the time to do it, because you've got us for 6 months after they leave, and we're going to be there supporting, and we're going to be there doing that. And it really does look different for every kid, but it can be as simple as seeing a kid laugh at a joke that hasn't laughed in a while. They're able to stop and deep breathe. They're able to read a book. They're able to make friends and laugh with friends, and they're not such a loner, and they're interacting with their peers. We graduate a lot of kids from high school in Newton, especially. Opportunity Academy is a blessing.
Yeah.
That's another piece. A lot of these kids, they never thought they were going to graduate high school. And unfortunately, a whole lot of people told them they were never going to graduate high school.
Because what's the statistic on foster youth that don't graduate. It's something like
Lot.
50%, if not more.
There was a principal in the delinquent facility, in the treatment facility for delinquent youth that I worked in, and he shared a study with me, and of course this was in 2003, I think, at the time, that there was a study in one of the Carolinas that they literally studied reading levels of second graders to know how many prisons to build.
Oh my
Gosh.
God.
And it just makes you ill to think about that piece.
Yeah, you're just
They-
setting these kids
Mhm.
up with this like pre-stamp of you don't even know who they are. You're just judging them on how well they can read Charlotte's Web.
Exactly. You're essentially setting them
Wow.
up for failure.
Which
and-
is just not, that is not what's important. I always talk, like I said, I talk about my kiddos that committed crimes. They got caught committing a crime first. My very first, we had what we call one-on-ones, and we do that at our facility as well. But stole a loaf of bread to feed his little sister because mom was on drugs and not at home. That was the first time he got arrested.
And that's that moral question of, do you do wrong to
Exactly.
do a greater good?
Yep. And so
that's a
it's
fine
just
It is.
hard. There's so many things about these kids, and it's just hard to understand. Like I said, you have to be able to see that why.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
So-
how do you tell that kid that feeding your sister was wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't.
I'm not touching
You
that.
don't.
No.
You can't.
Exactly, because he was just trying to be that protective brother and
Mm-hmm.
support. So, I mean, I feel like that kind of leads us to another good segue is, can you tell us maybe what some common big misconceptions are that people have about residential facility and services?
They're bad kids. We hear that all the time. They're just bad kids. I like kids from hard places. They're not bad kids.
Absolutely
Again,
not.
and not even, like I said, not even my kiddos that had committed crimes to end up where they were. But what I hear most frequently is the bad kids go to residential.
When they're not bad kids, they've had bad things happen to them.
If anything, they're misunderstood.
I would love a world where there's no, what we call congregate care residential. Our treatment facility is absolutely necessary. I mean, to get into our Newton facility, which is a PRTF,
Which stands for what?
psychiatric residential treatment facility,
Thank you.
you have to have exhausted all community resources. So they're doing individual medication, they're doing attendant care, targeted case, like they're doing a bunch of stuff in the community, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
They're still a danger to themselves or others. And so I always call it a necessary evil.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's just at some point, we didn't have the right services in the community versus they're a bad kid. They didn't respond to what was available. And Kansas is a state that has a lot of really rural areas.
Yeah.
If you're in Sedgwick County, great.
Yeah.
There's a million choices.
Yeah. You're in Western Kansas.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you
Not so
don't
much.
have a million choices.
Yeah.
There may be a wait list for months for therapy. And so it looks very different. But yeah, for me, it's the bad kid thing. I just struggle so much. I hear it from the community. I hear it from sometimes law enforcement. I hear it from all of those things. And legitimately, some of our children commit crimes
Yeah.
and do those things. But how did we get
To that
to
point.
where we are? And the other piece is we take really tough kids from tough places, and by the time they come to our facilities, they have learned how to disrupt. And it's really confusing to them when their little disruption tricks don't work with us.
Mhm.
I always just, I'm like, oh, this is about to get real interesting because they've tried the first 6 things and I think they might be out of things now.
So for our listeners, a disruption usually means you're removing a kid
Yeah.
from a placement, from a home, from a group home, any kind of
yes, any of
location.
those placements. And so
Yeah.
for whatever reason, that particular home or group home was not equipped to deal with the aggression, the self-harm, the running away behavior. We're pretty stubborn. And
rightfully so.
Yes.
you know, it's interesting to watch our group home in Goddard, because what if kids do, and they don't typically run away from Goddard because we're in the middle of nowhere out there, but like if we go into town to the Y, and they're real confused when we hold their bed and they get picked up and they think they're going to stay in Dryack and we come get them. Because they're so used to foster homes and other group homes, because the rule is you have to hold the bed for 24 hours on a run.
Okay.
But you can reach out and say, hey, DCF, can I have a bed hold? And I don't know a time we've not done that. Like, same with Dryack. If you go into Dryack on a Friday, again, 24 hours, but Monday comes, we can say, hey, their court hearing is Thursday. Can we hold that bed till Thursday to see if they get released?
Okay.
Because where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're going
And
to be not
Jax
a
is juvenile
intake and assessment center.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of attached to detention but different. And so
Okay.
you go in, you get assessed, they decide, do I release you or do you go to detention from there and
Yeah.
get held?
Well, and that consistency of having them come back just points again that like you're an adult that they can count on, whether or not they like this
Mm-hmm.
or not, they
Mhm.
can count on it.
Exactly.
And they very much think they see that everyone's given up on them.
Yeah.
And they feel like, in ways, a lot of them have parents that just quit working their plan.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, they just went, I can't do this anymore. And so, I've heard kids say, if my parents don't want me, who's going to want me?
That breaks my
And
heart.
that is a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if
All you can do is be there.
Exactly.
because parents are the ones that are supposed to love you no matter what.
Yes.
And if
not
they're
hurt
not,
you and not do all the things that they've
yeah,
experienced.
and if they can't show up, then who will? And that's where
Mm-hmm.
the work that you do, Allison, and the work that we do at EmberHope comes in, and our foster parents and
Absolutely.
adoptive parents step up and
Yes.
fill that void.
Because there are individuals out there that want to show these kids that they are loved, that they are supported. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
use love very lightly because with that, we do this job because we care. We might not actually love the youth, but we love what we're doing. We love giving back. And so I want to make sure I distinguish that as well.
Yes. And you couldn't do this if you didn't care. Well, I mean, maybe you could, but I wouldn't think you'd be good at it. I mean, I always tell people, like I said, don't personalize it, but I am 100% belief that you love residential or you hate it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like this is okay. And people usually know really fast when they start. Like, we are pretty honest about behaviors when we interview.
Which is very important.
And they tell us, I heard everything you said and I thought I could do this. And then I lived it and I can't.
I would
Yeah.
imagine it's a very difficult thing to portray without being in the weeds of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, one thing I do want, if you're willing, Allison, to maybe give our listeners a little bit of insight into the difference between PRTF and our YRC2, because
Absolutely.
I know one is locked and one is not, and there's a lot of misconception and misunderstanding with those.
So, YRC2 is a group home at the level of, it is licensed by DCF. And so in that facility, for us, is only youth that are in the care and custody of DCF. That facility is not required to do treatment. You can take them out in the community. You can do all those things. We choose to partner with people because we believe that's in the best interest of the kid. They are much more in the community. Those kiddos are at the Y, they're at the zoo, they're there weekly, daily, every other day. They're able to, walk around campus with staff, and they're able to do those things. Now, some of those kids are coming out of a hospital or a PRTF. Some of them are waiting to go into that setting. But it is there's not a delayed egress door. We lock the door to keep people from getting to our kids, but they can leave our facility at any time. And that is hard for people to grasp. Like, we cannot physically stop them from exiting the building unless, so for instance, a kid says, I'm going to go jump off a bridge and kill myself. At that point, my staff are then obligated to try to stop the kid from leaving.
Yeah.
A psychiatric residential treatment facility is a level of care licensed by the Kansas KDADS. So it's a completely different, it's a Medicaid paid service or private insurance paid or a combination. You have to meet certain criteria. So you're assessed one of our 3 Kansas, what we call MCOs, but the Medicaid, people that do Medicaid say, yes, you meet criteria. It's a prior authorization request. Those go out to all the PRTFs. They are accepted to the facility or wait list. It is not a placement. That would be what KDADS would want me to tell you, is it is absolutely not a placement.
Yeah.
You are there until you have completed treatment and are no longer a danger to yourself or someone else. For us, that runs, we run between 130 and 155 day stay, which is pretty typical for all the PRTFs. Our staff are required to try to physically stop them from leaving a building. Our particular PRTF, the doors are locked. We had to get a waiver from the fire marshal for that. Our staff must remain in what we call sight and sound. I always say there's an and there, so they have to be able to see them and hear them.
Yeah.
And it is typically a higher, what I call acuity. So it's a higher, you see more behaviors, you see more of those things in that setting. And there's an end. Like, there's not an end in a YRC2, which is kind of what drives me bonkers about it, because kids stabilize and then teams want to leave them there because they've never done this good somewhere. At the point that you no longer meet medical criteria, which is a danger to self and others, you have to discharge a PRTF. And so it's a very different level of care. There's a finite end. It's treatment. It is treatment all the time. Everything you do is tied back to treatment. You watch a TV show, it needs to be talked about and tied back to treatment. It's called active treatment is what those are called. And so they're licensed differently. There's very different requirements for what staff are required to do. Staff to client ratio is different there. We have chosen at the YRC2 to do a 1 to 5 waking. PRTF is a 1 to 4 waking, 1 to 6 sleeping. And so it looks very different. You have more staff. The other piece is nursing is present full-time from, usually we run 8 to 8, 9 to 9, a 12-hour shift. Yeah. And one has to be on call. You need a clinician on call. All of those things are required in a PRTF, whereas I have a PRN nurse. And honestly, a lot of group homes don't have a nurse at all. It's nice to have a PRN nurse that can come in, make sure your med card's good, make sure all the things are straight. Quite frankly, our kids just like to see nurses sometimes. And so it's just a higher level of care for that PRTF. And it, like I said, licensed much differently, requirements are much different. But the reality is a lot of those group home kids are coming out of or waiting to go into the higher level of care. And so the difficulty navigating it is you're in a lower level of care with a kid that would be managed much differently if they were in a higher level of care.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing that insight and giving us a little bit more information. And hopefully our listeners will really absorb this as well. I kind of want to switch gears a little bit since we've been talking really heavily about the information and about the misconceptions. Let's switch it and talk about the stories of hope, the things that you see. Can you maybe share a moment or a story that reminds you why this work matters?
There's a lot over 25 years. But we have and I'm going to call her a young lady because she is 18. She's kind of wandered between our YRC2 and our PRTF. But first time in our PRTF, very aggressive, she had a really tough time. She has graduated high school. She is waiting on a long-term. She will live in an adult assisted living because of some of her diagnoses, but she has been accepted. She's visiting. We're just waiting on a contract to be signed for her to go that way. I've had a kiddo testify with me in front of the legislature from my PRTF.
Wow.
On aftercare. And so, I think a lot of our success comes from that when you look at the numbers. And we started aftercare based off a giant report. But ultimately, the percent of people that were returning to a PRTF within a year was around 35%. We've been running around 18%.
That's really good.
That's amazing.
And I attribute all of that to Lydia and Stella, who do our aftercare. They are amazing humans. But some of that is things like, so parents are like, oh, my kid's doing really good. They don't need any of these services when they leave. It's somebody that can go, oh, no, your kid's doing good because they have all these services. And so they're going to, we call it time at home. It's time at home because you don't visit your home.
Yeah.
It's not a home visit. You don't visit your house where you live. It's time at home. They go to the first time at home. They go to the intake at the community mental health center. They are available for crisis and to work through things and to see you and talk to you and kind of help meander through the school system and all of those things. And so that program has been so successful, and we hear just continue to hear really positive things about it. And I think there's a reason the legislature continues to fund it.
Yeah.
And the success level. But yeah, I had a young lady that, was adamantly, I can't do her story justice because, like I said, she testified and did an amazing job. Just about, ironically, went to United Methodist Church, was struggling with some suicide self-harm after her boyfriend broke up with her. She was like, I'm not going to a facility, and someone at the church knew about us. And she will tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to her. Relationship with parents is better. All of those things happen. We graduate multiple kids every year. There have been years we've graduated 8 to 10. They get to walk in the graduation. Shift to Goddard. I had a young lady who got nominated for Student of the Month, not once but twice in the same month by two different people. One was the school resource officer. And so the kids I'm taking in Goddard are typically kids that no one else will take. They would have been what we call failure to place. There isn't a place for them to go.
Yeah.
Struggled previous to coming to us, and then goes into a public school and
gets
the
student
school
of the
resource
month.
officer and a
Yeah.
teacher's like, student of the month.
That is amazing.
And it's just cool to see the kids, especially in Goddard. Like, it's cool to see them at the zoo. It's cool to see them at Exploration Place. It's cool to see them at the Y. They're working on a talent show.
Oh my
Love
gosh, I
it.
bet that's going to be so fun.
Yeah, they're working on a talent show. I mean, they just do amazing things out there that just help make those kids feel normal. And you get you just get these success stories intertwined. And it's the little things. It's the little things like graduating, like both campuses will reward kids and take them out to eat. You know, that's twofold. Let's talk about manners. But some of it is just, I get to go to Applebee's and sit down, and when's the last time some of our kids did that are in foster care or even at home?
Yeah. It brings it back to the connection. It brings it back to being in the community, giving them that normalcy. It's all so vital.
Yeah. And our staff do, they very much try to connect with the kids and find something. And not every staff connects with every kid, and that's okay. But just trying to find, I always tell them to find a common ground.
Exactly.
Sometimes I'll do activities with staff where I'm like, I have the kids write something they think no one else knows on a piece of paper. And then it's like a contest to see which staff can get the most things that kids think no one else knows.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
It is.
Because it's really a connecting thing. Like, how much are you talking to these kids about?
I mean,
all of
essentially, you're
that?
going back to the basics. I think that's so smart.
Yeah.
What is one thing you wish the public better understood about the youth that we serve overall?
They just want to be normal and included. I think we're blessed with a wonder, especially Pathways and Goddard. We're blessed with, church families that have very much just taken they're going to youth group. They're doing those things. Those are the things where you see our kids light up. It's not, I mean, it's great to learn. It's great to do those things, but so many of our kids will say, I am so sick of being the foster kid. Yeah. Everybody just sees me as the foster kid. They don't see me as a kid. They don't see me and all of the things I've accomplished because foster kid overshadows everything else they've done. And so, like I said, we're very blessed with Pathways that they just don't, they know where we're from, they know, but nobody, it's not a label, it's not talked about, they participate in the same things the other kids participate in. We've kind of had we'd had the same experience at Trinity Heights in Newton. And so, they just want to be kids.
Exactly.
And it's so hard to always be the foster kid or
it's hard
the kid in a facility.
It's hard to be the one that's constantly ostracized.
Yes, because there is a negative stigma to foster kid, right or wrong, which I think is insane when you think about it. Like, you don't come into foster care because of something you did.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's something done to you.
Yep.
And I think sometimes, too, a lot of parents will assume that they're just hesitant to let their kids be friends because they assume, oh, there must have been sexual abuse and they'll do something to my kid, or they might fight, or I don't want my kid to know what this, these things that this kid has been through. My belief is your kid will be better for knowing. Like, your kid will be better for, I feel like I'm better for the friend I talked about. Like, I came from a 2-parent household that was 2 parents till my dad died in 2005. And talk about an eye-opening moment when I found out what was happening to this particular friend of mine.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm a better person for it.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I
such
think
a
it-
good point.
It builds some resilience, but also maybe some appreciation for where you are and how you can maybe be a lending hand to someone else. I think that's just the theme of foster care in general, even as like a foster parent standpoint, is if you have so much, what can you give to someone else?
Exactly. And I think also too that another thing that is typically misconceived is whenever you're in your like bubble, you go through your day to day. We all might come from certain families. We might not know exactly everything else that goes on until you spark those conversations, until you have them, until you're maybe working in a field or talking with people who are in the field, listening to this podcast, whatever it may be. Broaden your viewpoint, broaden your knowledge, just all of it in general. So to this, I do also want to ask you, Allison, because I think this kind of segues into it a little bit. How can community members maybe support our youth who have experienced the trauma?
I'll still go back to treating them like they're just normal everyday kids. But, I've sometimes talked to churches, especially about human trafficking, just because it's kind of a second passion of mine, and so many of our kids experience it. But they're shocked when I say pray. Pray for not just the kids, pray for my staff, pray for all of us. We need it. We appreciate it. We do all of those things. But if you have time, donate your time. If you've got, I've had ladies come bake with our kids. I've had, they like that stuff. We have Juniper Academy that comes and does music with our kids. And so if you have a talent and you can share it with our kids, share it. If you don't have a talent, I think our wish list is still out on the internet, on our website, and there's things that our kids do. I always say the other piece is advocate, advocate, advocate. Talk to people. This can't be the elephant in the room that nobody talks about, especially post-COVID. I am raising a COVID kindergartner. And I've asked teachers, I'm like, can you tell? And they're like, oh, yeah. Mental health in America is a thing. There's mental health issues. And I think if we can educate, advocate, talk about it, not have it be the elephant in the room, not have people feel stigmatized by it, not make assumptions about the foster kids. The other piece is not make assumptions about their families.
Yes.
So many people, and I think I was blessed as a caseworker that I just did not, I separated the behavior the parent did from the person. Those parents often came from hard places. And so, just don't make assumptions. Don't try to treat them like just anybody else you would.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing. One final question. What gives you hope for the future of the youth in our care?
Oh, these kids are so smart, so creative. Oh my goodness. No, they really are. Like, there's just things that amaze me. Certainly they're more tech savvy. I always tell staff, like, every generation is better at it than we are. But, you know, I have kids that are musical. I have kids that are artistic. I have kids that write. They have hopes. They have dreams. Like, I was blessed to have not gone through what they went through, but I think back and I'm like, gosh, would I have been able to hang on to my hopes and my dreams and my, they're not all hopeless.
Exactly.
Gosh, they want something better, but they're still, like, when you dig and you talk, they have a plan. They have something they want. And if they're willing to do the work, they're going to get there.
Absolutely.
And I think that is kind of what I cling to, because at the point when they lose all hope and nobody has any hopes and dreams, we are in a bad place.
Agreed.
Well, that motivation keeps them going, and it keeps them stronger, and it gives you guys and your staff just something to hold on to and to work towards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Ugh.
Well, before we conclude, is there anything else you would like to say? Anything else you'd like our listeners to know?
I don't think so. I mean, it really is just about, not putting them in a little bubble and they're not all alike. Not all foster kids or residential kids are alike. They're not bad kids. They're not. I always try to reiterate that, because they get a bum rap. They get a label because people see the behavior, and they may have outbursts in the community. Well, trauma is a thing, and you can't always control yet, where that's why we're here, is to help them learn coping skills and things like that. But that's my biggie, is just these are normal everyday kids, and they just want to be normal everyday kids and not labeled.
Exactly. I think that was very well put. I couldn't have said it better myself. So, Allison, thank you so much for coming on, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You gave us so much insight, and for talking about your experience. I know hopefully our listeners will take a lot away from this, and hopefully it has changed that little perspective in some of their mindset when it comes to residential services and foster care in general, or child welfare in general. So again, just thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hearing Allison talk about her passion, talk about her experience, it was so eye-opening. I mean, I knew a little bit, but I feel like her sharing her why, essentially, and then also talking about her experiences, the good and the bad, the misconceptions, it was so eye-opening. And I think one of my takeaways was knowing that the youth need to feel their connection. They can't be alone. It's essentially like this giant circle, and it's a cycle thing. They need the connection. They need the support. You can't let their behaviors define them, and they need the stability, whether it's the staff staying on and making sure that they have the continuity of care, or it's the support from the community members getting involved. I think all of those things are so vital.
Absolutely. I think it just honed in on Allison's ability to do this for 25 years. I mean, that's a level of commitment that's not often seen in the world of child welfare.
Definitely.
And so hearing just how varied her career path has been, but still the amount of heart and the amount of passion and the amount of can-do attitude, and the work is not done yet, then she's in it for the long haul. I think she's exactly where she's supposed to be, and I'm so glad she's part of our EmberHope team personally, and I think everybody else is.
I wholeheartedly
along that
agree.
Same sentiment. But she was just such an amazing person to give some more insight on what residential services are, because it can be overwhelming from our viewpoint, and might look a little scary and might look a little apprehensive even to our public. But Allison made it feel not so overwhelming and I don't know, necessary in a.
And I love that, one, it takes a special kind of heart to do this work. It truly does. And she showed that. She spoke it, she showed it, she continues to show it.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, piggybacking off of you, Britt, is knowing that special kind of heart, even she recognized, like she had said earlier, she had to step away. She wasn't quite sure if it was right for her.
Yeah.
That's something Warren also talked about on our first podcast. That's something I've spoken about. I think that is something our listeners genuinely need to understand is it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to step away, focus on yourself for a little bit. But ultimately, if you have a passion for this job, if you have a passion for this work, you come back because we genuinely want to make that difference.
Absolutely.
Closing remarks.
Yeah.
Residential care is often misunderstood, but at its core, it's about helping young people find safety, stability, and opportunities for healing when they need it most. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Little Sparks, Big Hope. If you enjoyed today's conversations, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with someone who wants to learn more about the work happening at EmberHope or just about residential facilities in general.
Absolutely. And it really does sound like Allison could use some more equally passionate people to join her team. So if what she said resonated with you, or if you know someone who might be a good fit here, head to EmberHope.org and find that careers button and apply today. We'd love to have you join this phenomenal team.
Yes, and if you want a little bit more insight into the job itself, my wonderful counterpart, Ms. Kim Miller, she does preliminary interviews. So she gives the applicants an overview of what to expect. She tries to make sure that they see a realistic job preview that our marketing team, Ms. Autumn and Britt, made possible for us. And it's just, I think if you want to learn a little bit more, that is a great way to get started. Definitely apply and have that conversation with Kim.
Yeah, for sure. Allison hit the nail on the head for ways to get involved with our residential services, with EmberHope in general, with all the things that we have coming down the pike, with volunteering your time, volunteering your services, donating items, donating monetarily. Every little bit helps make a difference to our kids in care, to our staff. It just makes everything a little smoother year round. We do have our back to school collection drive where we have some multiple locations around the area that have collection boxes for school supplies. I know school just ended, but when you are trying to navigate and get school supplies for thousands of children, you plan early. So head to EmberHope.org to find a donation site near you.
And you could even potentially be volunteering with our staff because even our staff does the volunteering. So
Absolutely.
that way you could spark those conversation with their staff, get a little bit more insight before you even apply for those jobs if you're interested.
You never know who you're going to meet when you're around our EmberHope team.
Exactly. One last shout out that I want to do is to City Life Church for allowing us to continue to utilize their podcast space.
Absolutely. They are so kind and they're so welcoming, and they're in the heart of Wichita at Broadway and 2nd. Big, beautiful building with some gorgeous stained glass. And I know they're doing a lot of work inside this building just to make it a little more cozy and a little more homey. So if you are looking for a new church fam, we recommend City Life Church. They are nothing but absolutely welcoming.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we just want to thank our listeners again today for taking the time. We know that these are a little bit longer podcasts, but again, the reason for them is so we can dive a little bit deeper. You can get more of a deeper understanding rather than doing just surface level conversations. So if you have stuck out the time and you've listened to this whole podcast, we just greatly appreciate you and your support.
Absolutely. Education is key in this world. To learn more about our programs, ways to get involved, any of that, head to EmberHope.org. Shoot us an email at littlesparks@EmberHope.org. Otherwise, we will see you guys next time.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thanks.
I'm Allison Pate, and will you be the one?